What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in to Late Hoops. Today's video, we're going to be reacting to your guys' hot takes. If you ever want to be featured in this next video, please be sure to subscribe and leave on post notifications, as I will be dropping polls in my community tab where you guys can leave your hot takes. Without further ado, let's get straight into this. Started with number one. The first hot take comes from Mal Miller, and it says, "I'm very biased with this one, but my hot take is that Joel Embiid is the best player in the league." Now, this is a take I don't necessarily love, but I don't necessarily hate. If I could go and watch one NBA player right now, I feel like the Joel Embiids and the Nikola Jokic's would definitely be at the top of my list. I feel like the entertainment value that Joel brings every night on both ends of the ball, paired with his antics, just makes him such a fun watch. But fun doesn't necessarily mean you're the best. Obviously, he averages like an insane 32 or 31 points right now, and I think he's averaging 11 boards to go with that as well. He's injured right now, so a take like this, it's kind of hard to say he's the best player in the league while he's not healthy. But I would say Joel, he's not the best player in the league, but he definitely has solidified himself in the top 5 or top 3, depending on who you ask. If he's not hurt, I think he's probably a top 3 player, especially with people like Bron getting older in age and just falling way out of this conversation. I mean, I don't think LeBron's been a top 5 player for a couple years, but this is not a bad take. I definitely would say there's a lot of people who would agree with it and a lot of people who would disagree with it. Next, we have two hot takes coming in from Demi. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, but the first one is that the Raptors will blow it up, and the second one is that the Nuggets will make the finals. So for the Raptors blowing it up, this is interesting because before the season, I had really high praise for the Toronto Raptors. I thought that they were going to be a 5 or 6 or 7 seed at the minimum, but right now they're so far out of the playoffs. And just this morning, there was a report that Fred VanVleet denied a $100 million plus contract and extension, and he's probably going to test free agency. Now, this is very interesting considering that we're talking about a G Leaguer or a former G Leaguer who's denying $100 million plus. It just goes to show you how unhappy he would be in Toronto. I remember on JJ Redick's podcast a couple years ago, he said wherever the bag is, he's going to go. But now, he made some money in Toronto, and he's maybe looking to go to a championship contender. I feel like you have a lot of great young pieces like OG Anunoby, and a lot of people are quitting on him, but Scotty Barnes is still a really, really solid talent. And the big elephant in the room is you have an all-NBA player in Pascal Siakam. You obviously have a lot of other great pieces like Chris Boucher, Gary Trent Jr., and many more. But I feel like if you're the Raptors, the price for OG and the price for Scotty, who I would not trade, I feel like he would be one of the people that would be untouchable if they blew this thing up. But for Pascal and OG, I feel like the price is insanely high because we're talking about a second or first or third team All-NBA player in Pascal, and then we're talking about a top 3 defensive player of the year candidate, someone who's leading the NBA in steals, and OG Anunoby. I feel like the Raptors honestly probably will blow it up. I didn't want to come to that and say this, but it's just how I feel. And the second one, that the Nuggets will make the finals, honestly, I can't see a team stopping them, especially with how injury riddled this, Western and Eastern Conference has been. Obviously, it doesn't really matter for the East because it says make, not win the finals. I feel like the Clippers, even though my last video is about the Clippers getting their ass beat by the Nuggets by, 30 points, I do still have some faith in the Clippers. Call me crazy, but when they're healthy, I'm just a big Kawhi Leonard advocate. This take, I feel like both of these takes are going to age very well, so shouts out to you, man. Next take comes in from Kane4907, and it's that my hot take is that the Cavs will somehow find a way to make the finals. Now, this one could be a little bit recency bias, obviously, with Donovan, coming out and dropping 71 the other day. And the Cavs, they've been performing pretty well this season. But I'm going to have to shut this one down right away. If they make the finals, clip this and quote me, and you can make fun of me all you want, but I just feel like with teams like Brooklyn out east and the 76ers, who look a lot more serious this year, and obviously I didn't even mention the Celtics or the Bucks. Like, the Eastern Conference is so tough, and if this team was going to reconstruct like they did, grabbing Donovan Mitchell this offseason, and then make the finals the first year, that would be insane. I mean, you got to think, like, LeBron and the Big Heat, they didn't even win the finals the first year. So it just takes a lot of time for the chemistry to kind of build. Darius Garland suffered some injuries. Evan Mobley suffered some injuries. Jared Allen's been in and out of the lineup at the beginning of this year. They don't have a full 40 games under their belt yet. So it's just really hard for me to kind of like tip my hat and say, yes, they're going to win and make the finals. I mean, I could see before the season I had them being a second round exit, but I could see them maybe making the Eastern Conference final in a Atlanta Hawks 2019 style run where they go and they get smashed by whoever's actually going to go to the finals. But hey, basketball is a game of runs and anything could happen on any given night. So I don't necessarily hate this take. I'm just not going to buy into it. And then another hot take from my boy Kane. He says, another hot take that I have is that the Nets will fall off since last year they had the same record at this time, except they were the 2 seed, but they went all the way down the standings in the playoffs and got swept. I got a feeling something similar will happen this year. Now, this isn't necessarily incorrect, but what you have to realize is that the dynamic of this roster, from not only the players, but the coaching, is so different. Jacques Vaughn has been outstanding with the Nets to start the season, and honestly, Ben Simmons has looked pretty good. Seth Curry looks rejuvenated. They have Joe Harris back, who was injured all last year. The acquisitions of Royce O'Neal and TJ Warren have been great to start. Kyrie has actually been able to play and get runs with this team the entire year. He has not been in and out of the lineup. And Kevin Durant is somehow, some way having a career year and making a great case for the MVP. I feel like this Nets team is nowhere near similar to this last team. While in the standings, they may be similar, but just when it comes to the players and the coaches, I feel like it's so different. The Nets, before the season started, they were my favorite to make the finals out east. And I remember saying that no one will care if they have a poor regular season and they win or lose 30 or 40 games in the regular season and they're the 5 or the 6 or the 7 seed, but they will definitely remember if they go on to win the championship as the 5 or 6 or 7 seed. So this is a take that, again, I don't necessarily hate it because you're spitting. I mean, it's facts. But only time will tell. I'm really kind of eager to see how this one ages. The next hot take is coming from a longtime supporter. Shout out Baker Boy. He says, hot take, Donovan Mitchell should be top 3 in MVP consideration. He's currently tied 7th. Now, this is one of those takes where I would agree if the league wasn't so stacked. I mean, just off the top of my head, Jokic, Kevin Durant, Giannis, Jason Tatum, like those are 4 players, and Joel Embiid. Those are 5 players that are literally having career years. And Kevin Durant's been an MVP before. Jokic has been an MVP before. Giannis has been an MVP before. You know what I mean? Like, this is just such a competitive season for the NBA this year. And it's really, really hard to kind of muscle your way into that conversation. Now, if some injuries happened or some people were slipping in the standings or people were just messing up, completely and not playing to the level that they're playing now, I could definitely see this take kind of coming to fruition and him finishing in top 3. But we all know that it only matters if you're top 1 at the end of the year. And honestly, I just feel like Donovan and the Cavs, they're just going to be in all award categories a little bit swept under the radar. Like, I would be surprised, I would not be surprised if Donovan didn't even make an All-NBA team this year. And it's not even that I don't think that he should, but I feel like the media is just going to disrespect the Cavs. I mean, they're not really necessarily the biggest market, and I just feel like the hype isn't fully built around the Cavaliers yet. Like, for some reason, they're focusing more on teams like the Utah Jazz. Like, I've been seeing the Jazz, who are a tremendously small market team, get way more press than a team like the Cavaliers. And honestly, it's just interesting when you think about how the media really dictates these awards, whether they're postseason or regular season awards. But again, I don't really hate this take. I feel like in another world, it would be true. If you would have said top 5 in MVP consideration, I probably would agree, especially with Embiid getting hurt and, Ja Morant's hurt and Zion Williamson's hurt. Like, a lot of these guys that are teetering and sitting around the 6, 7, 8, 9 spots in the MVP list and the MVP standing, a lot of those guys are getting hurt or slipping in the standings. So again, I don't hate this take, but I just don't necessarily agree with it. And the next one comes from Paprika Finesser. I hope I said that right. And I would assume he's talking about Devin Vassell. He says Devin Vassell would be compared a lot to Bradley Beal, but will end up having a better career thanks to his defense. Now, this is a take I love to see because it's out of nowhere, and you wouldn't understand it unless you watch Spurs basketball. I feel like he's not too out of line. Bradley Beal is a generational scorer. I will say that. Let me just throw that out there. But his defensive capability is not really... It's not really there. I mean, he's a good on-ball defender sometimes. I mean, all NBA players have the capability to be if they have a decent little wingspan. But the thing with Devin Vassell is I feel like if Bradley's averaging 28
and Vassell's averaging 20 or 24 or 22 or 25, but he's playing elite level defense, then in an NBA world, that's way more worth it. I mean, you look at the way guys like Jaylen Brown developed, who Jaylen Brown comes into the league and he's just a slasher and he's a great defender. And then after like 3 or 4 or 5 years, he kind of gets a bag, playing next to a guy like Jason Tatum, and he's able to become his own 24, 25 point per game scorer. Like, it's very possible that Vassell could flourish and prosper into a great player. Now, does that mean he'll be better than Bradley Beal? No, but this says having a better career, and I'm definitely going to have to agree with that because Bradley's career is seemingly rotting and ending in Washington. I get it. He's all, oh, we have a good team and KP and Kuz, and that's what he said on JJ's podcast, and I don't mean to be a dick, but you can just tell that he's saying that for a front and that he actually just wanted that huge bag, and I can't blame him. That's generational wealth. But I really do like this take. Now, this next one is probably going to be the title of the video. From Isaiah Henry. Donovan Mitchell has been a top 15 player for 3 years now. This is super interesting because Donovan in Utah, I mean, we kind of know him as the notorious amazing regular season player. He's averaging good stats, not really the best efficiency, but the Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell experience did prove that they can win a lot of regular season games. So it just kind of depends on what sense you mean top 15 player, because there's a lot of players in the league. The first one that comes to my mind is Kawhi Leonard, who is not a regular season performer. Like, he doesn't go out there and average these crazy numbers in the regular season. And honestly, the past 3 years, he hasn't really played a lot in the regular season. But if you ask people, is Kawhi Leonard a top 15 player, they would think about what he does in the playoffs, and unanimously, we'd all agree that yes, he is when he's healthy. So for guys like that, it's just so hard because Donovan clearly has this grit about him and clearly has this, determination to just be the best prospect and the best NBA player he can. I mean, what he did in the bubble was honestly, I'm stuttering thinking about it because it was just amazing. But does that make him a top 15 player in the league for the last 3 years? Man, this is such a hard take. I'm gonna have to go with no. I mean, maybe he's the 15th or the 16th or the 14th. Like, it goes either way, man. I honestly can't even really decide this just because his regular season success has been amazing, but he is inefficient and he was not really much of a team player. I feel like Donovan Mitchell 3 years ago and 2 years ago is a completely different player than Donovan Mitchell this year, if that makes any sense. Like, this year, he's stepping into being a leader. He's stepping into being a facilitator. You can see his mood and attitude has just improved immensely since joining the Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, I don't hate this take. It's a very, very interesting one because it just depends on if you value that regular season success compared to the postseason success, also along with the efficiency of what a player can bring to a team. This is a great hot take. Again, I can't pick if I agree with it or not, but this is a great hot take. Second last one coming from my boy Hooper's Radar. If you guys haven't checked his channel out, please go down. It'll be in the description. Check him out. He's dropping NBA content just like me, and he's coming with a great take. Tyrese Halliburton is now the best true point guard as Chris Paul begins to decline and Tyrese reaches his prime. Now, I don't know if Tyrese is necessarily reaching his prime yet. I feel like in 2 or 3 years, he's going to develop even a better jump shot, and he's going to develop a more poised game. But this man's assist to turnover ratio just makes the first half of this take true. Being the best point guard, I mean, you think about the best point guard for the last decade, and names like Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry, like, those are point guards that are amazing. But I feel like him saying true point guard is what really makes this take, because being the best true point guard, I would assume he's talking solely about facilitating and being a leader and having everyone on your team look up to you. I mean, Tyrese is 20 years old. I'm not going to fact check that, but he could be younger. He could be a little older. I believe Tyrese is 20 years old, and he's leading the NBA in assists right now, and he has the least amount of turnovers for that ratio as well. Tyrese is going to be so fun to watch on this Pacers team. Like, and he has, what makes it even better is that he has that chip on his shoulder because Sacktown traded him. And obviously the Kings, they're doing really well. They've been playing a great brand of basketball. And if you guys have watched any of the Kings game, I'm just so happy to see how loud that
I can't think of the name of the arena, but I'm so happy to see how loud Sacktown is. You know, the other night they had a Kevin Huerter hit this three, and it sounded like a bomb went off in there. It was so loud. But this is about Tyrese. I do agree with this take. I feel like as far as facilitating goes, and just being a Chris Paul, a John Stockton, a Magic Johnson type of point guard, Tyrese is definitely filling those shoes very well. This is a great take, Hoover's Radar. And the last one for this video comes from Atlas7928, and he says, as a sports fan, I don't see the Golden State Warriors in the finals this year. I agree. I don't know if this means this is the official end of the dynasty and that the Warriors' reign is finally over, but they're all getting old. Their road record's terrible. Wiggins has been in and out with injuries all year. You know, Curry's been out with injuries most of this year. And as far as it goes from a mental standpoint, they talk like they're still the 1 seed. And that's something that the champs don't do. I mean, you usually let the game speak until you've won. Like, we all know that infamous Luka quote, everybody loves to talk when they're up. The Warriors have been talking like they're up when they've been really, really down this year. You know, they're under 500 on the road. They're under 500 on the season. Again, they've had injury woes. This is a great take. I don't know if I would call this a hot take, but it is the last one of this video. If you guys enjoyed this first hot takes video, please be sure to leave a comment and a like and subscribe if you're new, as 93% of you guys who watch this video aren't subscribed. I appreciate everything you guys do for me. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.